And up next, we have a session on how to become an effective author. And yesterday we had a session on, related to authors, and now this word effective. Let's see how it pans out. We invite the guests, Lipika Bhushanji, if you're here, please approach the dais. Priya Talwar, ma'am, Miss Petal Chandok. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. Mr. Ramakrishna Viraghavan. Petal Chandok. This time I think I got it right, ma'am. And Aba Gandhi. Lipika Bhushanji is a marketing and PR expert with rich experience in areas of brand building, brand communication, and conducting successful product launches across categories such as white goods and consumer, durable, FMCG, telecom, lifestyle, and publishing. It's a pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Priya Talwar is a dynamic professional with 10 plus years of experience in commissioning original titles, both fiction and non-fiction, developmental editing, line editing, copy editing, feature editing, and is capable in managing end-to-end publishing operations. It's a pleasure to have you here, ma'am. You're also the founder editor of Atelier, which helps authors develop their ideas into credible stories. Can we please have a huge round of applause for each speaker every time we announce them? Thank you so much. That's better. Miss Petal Chandok, was this better, ma'am? I am trying my best. Is a partner with Trust Legal. She became a part of Elite BW Legal 40 Under 40 Club of Achievers in 2020. That's fantastic, ma'am. Congratulations. Through a jury process, which is presided by senior advocates, managing partners of eminent law firms, and retired Supreme Court judges. It's a pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Mr. Ramakrishna Viraghavan. Ramakrishna ji is a barrister and senior advocate based in New Delhi, practicing at the Supreme Court of India. He has rights of audience before the Royal Courts of Justice in England and Wales. He carries nearly 4 decades of experience, that's more than twice the age of the host here, sir, in taxation and commercial litigation. He has appeared at almost every tier of taxation authorities, from the commissioners to the Supreme Court of India at various stages of career. Please, a huge round of applause for sir. And finally, Aba Gandhi, she's a senior partner, the Legal Watch. She's also a Posh Act consultant, formerly was also the director, legal and regulator of Lexis India. As a publisher, she's worked on writing by serious sociologists and other social scientists, historians, legal scholars, philosophers, and political scientists. She spent the first part of her career as a legal practitioner and legal editor. It's a pleasure to have you here as well, ma'am. Thank you so much. The speakers can take it from here.
Namaskar, everyone. First of all, I should thank the organizers, Shrish and Vikesh, and their very loyal team that has been working night and day for weeks to put up this wonderful event. This event is, I think, wonderful because it holds a lot of promise for not just the legal profession, but for legal publishing in India, both of which are at a critical stage right now. And our topic falls in the cross-section of these two paths. How to be an effective author. So in this context, I must say that we have a very meaningfully selected panel, because we have 2 of us, Priya and I are from publishing and editing. Lipika is a marketing professional with a solid background in publishing herself. And we have 2 practicing advocates, one younger and one quite senior, both of whom are in practice, but they also write and are very conscious of themselves as users of words, wordsmiths, as Mr. Viraghavan put it a while ago to us. So what we've decided to do with this time allotted to us is that I will do a very brief introduction. Brief is the key word here. Brief introduction to some of my thoughts on publishing and effective authorship that I have gathered from my own experience, first as a lawyer, then as an editor, and as a publisher, dealing with a variety of authors. So publishing, I would say, is of course a business, but it's more than a business. Every good business wants to ensure that it brings out good quality. That's a given. But publishing is concerned with more than that. And what is that? The purpose, I would say that publishing is a balance. It's a balance between the bottom line, the money, and the purpose of the whole, the fundamental purpose of the whole endeavor, which, in my opinion, is something that we really do need to bear in mind. Because that purpose is securing or preserving the output of the most learned and the most creative minds for future generations. So it's a responsibility. We cannot, for that reason, think of publishing merely as a business. And to go back to history a little bit, I'm looking at my watch, very conscious of the time. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century changed the world forever. Forever, because it was the moment, it was the time when a technology was created which permitted the sharing of information and knowledge with ordinary people beyond the circles of the elite. Don't forget, the elite of every society read. As soon as reading and writing were invented, the elite was reading and writing and learning. But ordinary people were not. They were kept beyond it. Three small examples from history always come to my mind. One is when the Bible was first translated from Latin into the modern European languages, there was tremendous resistance from the church itself. Because knowledge is power, as we know, and once people begin to understand what the text actually is, what it says, the elite fears its power moving out, decreasing. The second example that I often think of is the translation of our own Sanskrit Ramayana into Awadhi. There was tremendous resistance from the elite of Banaras. For the same reason. But the Ramcharitmanas was so popular, particularly because it was read out, it was sung, and it seeped into not only the minds but the hearts of people who understood that language, Awadhi. And it is still read today, as you know. The third example of resistance is how in colonial India, the British regime had very restrictive laws about printing. It was an obligation, it was a legal obligation, punishable under the law if not followed, to put your name and address on every single thing that was printed in the country. The reasons are not, we don't have to go far to guess the reasons, because once you print, you circulate information. And once subversive information gets out, talk of freedom goes out, the masters are rattled. So in this context, our subject, I would place our subject in this context, how to be an effective author. So just a few points which all of us agree on, all of us on the panel, that the authors have a big responsibility, which is communication. Communication with the target audience. So it is really very important, all our authors also agree, that we need to know who we are writing for, who needs this information. And very importantly, what is the likely level of the understanding of that audience? Because there are ways and ways of writing. You can use very big words, you can assume things, you can talk about theory, or you can, but once you are conscious of who you're writing for, you will think of what that audience needs to know. So the author really has to think about writing in a way that it reaches the audience, but without the author sounding condescending. Nobody likes being talked down to, regardless of what their level of knowledge is. We need to have a certain respect for our audience. And at the same time, we can't afford to be so formal and so terse that the audience loses interest and closes the book or doesn't get beyond page 3. In this, there's a person called Mark Bowden, who is known as a great communication coach, world famous. He deals with even national leaders and actors, all kinds of people who have to communicate. And he's also a body language expert. He made a comment that really struck me. He said, it's not about the content, whatever you're doing. It's about the effect of the content. So that's something that authors can happily bear in mind. So in our context, what am I saying? The scholarship and learning of authors is a tool. They are tools for reaching the audience. It is not enough to put them on display. Everyone loves to display. There are so many things to display in life. Learning is also often displayed. But if often is just that learning is only displayed and is not reaching, the book will sink without a trace. So tailoring and customizing the content is absolutely critical, knowing who you're writing for. I will end by saying that simplification is very important, and simplification is not the same as dumbing down. Not at all. I remember a conversation I had with a young woman, a student at NALSAR, when I was doing a short course on publishing and how to go about things. She was very deadly serious. She said, you know, we have to use certain words. We cannot simplify everything. It is pointless. The audience must come to reach a certain level. Well, I was a bit taken aback by that, but I take the point. I take the point. The audience, the level of the audience must be raised, but there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it. If you write if your first sentence takes up 8 lines, then you are not helping the audience. So there needs to be some kind of compromise between writing simply and writing accurately and authentically, and organizing your material. And getting feedback. Getting feedback is always a wonderful idea. When you write something, or even when you have an idea, get it back from your potential reader, from your best friend, from somebody who is basically literate, from a student, and then you will realize, you may well realize there's a gap. Or the person may say, wow, fantastic, I never thought of that. So both ways, it's a good thing to get feedback. And know what's already available. Know what's available and be clear what you want to write about. So now what we're going to do is
Excuse me, ma'am, I have one question. How to become an effective non-fiction writer? Means how to create an interest in non-fiction writing?
Yeah, basically our focus is on non-fiction. And we'll be talking to the panelists. They'll be giving us their experience on how they have developed books, how they have written books, long form, short form, short form articles. So we will get, that is why I am now going to stop and invite my fellow panelists.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So we have a number of questions that we discussed between ourselves. So first, let us, shall we start with our legal authors? Legal authors here. Mr. Veer Raghavan, as you may well know, has written a very different kind of commentary on the GST Act, which has created many complications for the world of commerce and trade. GST, not the book.
GST, not the book.
Yeah, he's quite a humorous guy. The GST has created, let's be clear on this, the book has tried to clear things up. And when we were speaking earlier, he said that when he started writing, or rather the reason he started writing is that he felt he needed to understand this subject more. So, Mr. Veeraraghavan, would you come in now and tell us a little bit about your experience of writing this book?
Yeah. My experience is this. I've been writing for about 35 years, and only legal non-fiction. I mean, you can have legal fiction, but it's legal non-fiction, yeah. First thing, when somebody comes over to ask me, I want to write a book, the first thing I tell is, you need to get your head examined first. Because writing a book is not a 100-meter dash. It is not a marathon. It's a ultra-marathon. 100 miles plus you have to keep running. So first thing is, understand why you want to write the book. And you need more than one why. As she pointed out, if you have only one why, it breaks down in the middle of the journey. So when I wrote this book my latest book is on GST. And I had several whys why I wrote the book. The first thing is GST is a complex legislation. It came in, I tried to go through other books to find solutions for my problems. No book was readily available, so I thought the best thing would be to write a book myself, understand GST. Second thing, so many reasons there. Second thing is by writing a book, you improve your own English, your own language. Third, by writing a book, you have your own discipline. You can't write a book without that kind of a discipline. So first start with why. Second thing is, don't wait for inspiration. Inspiration lasts 5 seconds. You have a pizza there, your inspiration goes off. So you need more than inspiration to write the book. There was this famous American author, he was called to a university commencement address. He went into the room and said, how many people want to write the book? And every student's hand went up. And he said, why are you wasting your time listening to my lecture? Go home and write the book. And he sat down. So first thing you must do to write the book is start writing the book and start writing on a daily basis. I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write till 6 o'clock. 2 hours every morning I had to get up to write the book because after 6 o'clock the rest of life came in. So my friend said, if you have to eat a frog every day, please eat the frog early in the morning so the rest of the day is good. That's the second thing. You have to keep writing. First, get your why. Why should you write? And second, keep writing. Third, don't wait for inspiration. It's only hard work. And fourth, know your reader. She pointed out. See, the book which I wrote is not for your businessmen. The book I wrote is for auditors and lawyers and judges. So the level of my writing is the level of their knowledge. A layman cannot read my book and understand GST. So you need to know whom you're writing for. These are the 4 things. I'm sure you have others.
Yes. Again, during our previous conversation, Petal mentioned a very important issue, which is that lawyers, and in fact as students also, are people who use language all the time. They must use language. So, Petal, will you share your thoughts on this?
Sure, ma'am. Firstly, thank you so much for, actually taking out time from your lunch time and being here. I'm sure all of you must be hungry. And thank you to the organizers for, in fact, organizing such a brilliant event, one of its kind in the first session. Coming to the aspect of, firstly, just sharing that, of course, one is not as a prolific author that Sir is, and I'm sure all the other panelists, Abhaji. But, of course, in my own limited capacity, I have been able to contribute in the legal fraternity itself in form of articles. In fact, also alongside, the Rajya Sabha Parliament, the Rajya Sabha and the Parliament of India in formulating the Surrogacy Act. And while doing that, a couple of things that one could, in fact, understand and focus on was that it's very important to be curious, when you are writing. So when you are curious on the issue or on the topic that one is picking up to write, you will be able to understand a a lot of facets of that particular aspect of topic that you're actually wanting to write on. That is one. Secondly, when we do that, of course, knowing your audience, knowing whom to write, of course, these are very basic things that one needs to do. As lawyers, especially because we are practicing lawyers, and I think it is on a day-to-day basis that we are actually writing, creating, and all of that is linked to a lot of emotion at some level. So as lawyers, I mean, not now, but back then, lawyers did not have a very good reputation and used to think that we are someone who would, not be very beneficial for clients or would just want to, take all their money. But that's not how it is. I think lawyers are someone who really understand the emotion of a client. And for an author also to be able to emotionally be attached and bring out that emotion in your writing is also, I think, very, very essential. Because then it is even more easy. I won't say easy, but even more, that's a very good channel to be able to, connect to your audience when you're emotionally connected to your topic. So, so having said that, yes, as lawyers, very important as to what words we use, as to what we read, what we write on a day-to-day regular basis. And with that, I think, of course, developing one's own knowledge base and to be able to also contribute as much. So as Sir has, in fact, simplified the aspect of GST, which is a very, very complicated issue, I agree, ma'am. So to be able to do that, for the larger audience, who is your target audience at the end of the day? That's what.
So we can say that as students, I gather some of you are students. The advice here is that writing needs to be done, and you should do it whenever you get an opportunity, because you will find that you have to write quite a lot as practitioners, or as legal advisors, or as any in-house counsel or regular lawyers. Words are your tools. Words are your tools. Now I think we could talk about an example of how editors, development editors, work with authors to go from the idea to the book in one's hand. And we have Priya Talwar here, who's worked with a number of successful authors. And from the first conversation to the last, there's a lot of work that she puts in as what we call development editor. So Priya, can you give us an example or two?
Sure, I'll give you an example, but quickly just to kind of, capture what everybody has said. I think if any of you who have an idea here in this, hall, all of you will have ideas, but not every idea that we have, even I have, is not a credible story. And if you're wanting to write book-length fiction or book-length non-fiction, somebody asked, how do I write a book, especially if it's non-fiction, you will have many, many ideas, but you need to be able to develop it to all these things that people have said, read daily, write daily, get whatever opportunity you get, right? So you need to know an idea is an idea and a story is a story. Not every idea is going to be a story. You need to be able to figure out which idea can become a story, one that's credible. And when I say credible, I simply mean that, and this is the work I do as an editor, as a book editor, as a developmental editor, I'm helping you at any stage, whether you're a published writer, whether you're an inexperienced writer, I'm taking you from an idea stage into a story that's credible, which means it's going to be as per the standards of the industry, publishing industry, but also it's going to be as per the expectations of your target reader, meaning that credible story, there are only certain number of readers, your target readers, who are wanting to read a story like that, who cannot probably even imagine a book like that existed. So you need to therefore meet your readers where they are at. So often the work I have to do, and I'll give you an example, for instance, a couple of years ago, a retired professor approached me saying, Priya, this much only. He said, listen, I want to edit my book, get it edited and published, and it's an autobiography. So I told him, okay, let's, meet, discuss. We met in person. I read his manuscript. which was 14, roughly 14 chapters spanning 40 years of his professional career as a veteran marketer and salesperson. Almost every two chapters, I saw that there was one brand that he talked about, and he had launched 20 brands. But that in itself was not a credible story. I needed to know more, which is where I connected with him, I interviewed him, I understood his intent. Like Google tries to understand our intent and gives us the best answer. My job was to figure out, okay, what is your intention? Why are you trying to write this book? You know, if you have gotten yourself examined and you still want to write that book. In his case, you know, he was known as the Bhishma Pitama of the footwear industry. He wanted to leave a legacy behind for people who were aspiring sales and marketing professionals and also students of marketing. So we figured out the number one thing that we had to do and make all our life easier as a writer and editor, put apart everything aside and figure out in one sentence, what is the promise that you're giving to your readers, your target readers, which simply means, and I'll share an example. A promise is, any business is going to make you a promise. For instance, Uber. Uber's promise is, and I'll connect how the book has to make a promise. Uber's promise is that I will take you from any place, any time, from place A to B at a certain cost, right? TNC apply. In a book, especially in non-fiction, and it applies in fiction as well, you need to promise your readers that, listen, this much you learn, and not 1 + 1, because nobody cares for 1 + 1. This much you learn from me, and you will also take away this. And it could be a measurable learning, it could be an immeasurable takeaway. In fiction, you'll know that, Priya, no, there's no promise. There is a promise. There is a promise of an experience. If you're reading a book which is like Agatha Christie, the promise is that I will be as good as Agatha Christie, but maybe even better. So there is a promise in fiction and in non-fiction. And if you do that, if you crack that in the get-go, from the beginning, your life as a writer will be much easier. But of course, at many stages, writers come to us at many, many stages at different, whether they've written 50,000 words or 30,000 words, it doesn't matter. As developmental editors, then my, intention is to understand, okay, what do they want to really say and what is on the page? Because often there is a huge gap. And we need to make sure that the gap is not wide, right? Which is why we say, yeah. So, in this case, the professor, who was a professor of marketing, he didn't have the time to finish his book. He said, I want to finish it in 6 months. I said, that's a little hard, but let's do it. So the promise we made for this particular book was that, in this book, we will bust the myths that are there about Lala companies, family businesses run in the country. There is a certain perception when you're working with the Lala business that there is, typically unfair, they're not democratic. But he showed, listen, for 40 years, I've launched 20 brands. Most of the companies were run, by Lala owners, and they were more than fair. And on top of that, we figured that we will tell our readers, in this book, you will also learn how he grew Woodland into the brand that you guys know, the shoe brand that everybody knew. He grew that brand from a small store in Karol Bagh into the brand that we know that it is today. So that was the promise in our book. And if you read it from the get-go, whether it's the title or the cover, you will see. Even in the subtitle, we made sure that we're giving out that promise. So the expectations of the reader are clear. Just like you have clear expectations from what this session is going to be, you need to be very, very clear on what the reader can expect. And if you want to learn that at any stage of your career, whether you're published or not, just do this much exercise. Take up any book that you've read that you've liked, ideally, and write a one-line pitch of that book. If you can crack that, believe me, your life as a writer will be much, much easier.
Right, that's an excellent way to put it. Focus is the point. And let us have the title of that book.
So the book is very interestingly titled. This was the author's suggestion. The title is My Journey Through La La Land. We wanted the pun. And the subtitle was From Salesman to CEO, because he became the CEO only after many, many years of hard work, and he started literally as a salesman selling Hall's Chiclet.
Right. Well, they're telling us we're really short of time. I want Lipika to... Lipika has a huge background in a critical field in publishing, and that is marketing. Because once the book is done, then what do you do with it? Or while it is in preparation, how do you ensure that it reaches an audience? And trade publishing is now becoming a very major field in India because there is a growing audience for real information about real life issues, whether they are politics or their history or their sociology or our lives in this chaotic and wonderful country of ours. Can you, maybe you can give us some examples of some of these books you worked on that have worked well as trade books, and they are really books for a wider audience, the growing literate audience in India.
Well, that'll be very difficult to answer because I've worked with over 1,500 writers all across the world, picking up, and every year we are known to churn out almost like a dozen bestsellers. So it's a difficult this thing. But before I get on to answering something about marketing specifically, because we have limited time and I think that'll be all, I would like to ask the audience, how many of you want to really write? Write. One, I'll only count one hand, even if you raise two. How many of you really read?
Good.
I'm glad.
Excellent.
I'm glad
Excellent.
there are more hands
Hello.
because I think just before this session we were having a conversation why everybody wants to write, but are there enough readers? See, the marketing exercise actually begins from the point where you actually start thinking of an idea today. Today, writers are expected to carry the burden of marketing a lot more than they used to earlier. And the reason is there is much more writing happening from India. There is much more, the reader base is definitely growing, but so is the writer base. There are many more writers that are coming out of India. It's a very, very rich Indian writing scene that is happening. And I think that is the reason why, the burden of having the writer to start off with their marketing right from the point parallelly when they start thinking of an idea is you have to start creating your social media presence. You have to start creating footprints right from when you start writing, because there is a long journey of getting published. There is a long journey of putting that idea into the form of a book. And in that journey, if you can parallelly utilize it to create a reader base for yourself already, it does practically two important things. One, it ensures that you get a good publisher. Half your battle is fought and won if you've got a good publisher to publish your book. Secondly, you're also much more clearer who your target audience is. The thing that we are talking about currently is who is writers need to identify their target audience, but how? How do they ensure who their target audience is? That is the time period, the training period that you all need for understanding who your target audience is. Whether you want to write academic books, whether you want to write non-academic history, politics, policy, whether you want to write a chicklet or fiction or thrillers, like Agatha Christie or Jeffrey Archer. But what you need to understand today, there is a lot more on the shoulders, riding on the shoulders of the writer. And that is where, professionals are brought in who help you structure. There are professionals brought in who help you write, who help channelize your thoughts, who help also develop that footprint and that brand identity for you by the time you come out with your first book. So marketing, as you had mentioned, there are bestsellers that we've created only because there is a lot more awareness of the strengths that a writer has in terms of his own personality, in terms of the kind of expertise and experience that he or she has, and in terms of how, efficient he is in putting all that, packaging all that, and going along with your marketer and your publisher to put it out there for the readers.
Right.
So that's one important aspect of becoming an effective writer.
Right. Thank you so much. If any of you would like to ask some questions, we would be happy to respond.
Yes, ma'am. Recently, I've authored a book, Slumdog Billionaire, okay? So I just want
Beg your
to...
pardon, I didn't hear the beginning of what you
Recently,
said.
I've authored a book, Slumdog Billionaire. So it is my book.
Acha.
And it was in World Book Fair as well.
Oh, okay. Right.
So...
Wonderful. We have another author
Yeah,
here.
I want to give I have only 2 books maybe. How to choose whom to give, right? Because everyone is so brilliant out here. I want to give a book.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, right. Yeah, we'll do that. Yes, we'll do that. Yes.
After the session call.
If there are questions on writing or authorship, yes.
Ma'am, I am a law student and I own my foundations, Yuva Kranti Foundations. So basically
I can't really hear.
एक्चुअली मैम मेरी एक एनजीओ है युवा क्रांति फाउंडेशंस, तो उसमें बेसिकली आई स्टार्टेड मैगजीन्स फॉर पब्लिशिंग. सो वी फेस्ड अ डिफिकल्टी फॉर spread all of the law college, all of the law students. So can you because you are very well known author in your industry, in legal career. So how can I मतलब कि मैं अपने लीगल मैगजीन्स को कैसे अपनी टीम के साथ कैसे इसको इंक्रीज करूं मैं, क्योंकि
किस चीज को इंक्रीज करो, क्या कह रहे हो?
जो लीगल मैगजीन्स,
मार्केट द मैगजीन. अब उसमें यही शुरुआती बात तो यही है कि ये किसको जानना है,
माय टारगेट
नहीं. अब मैं सवाल जो अपने को पूछने होते हैं ना कि किसको जानना है, वो खरीद के पढ़ेंगे कि नहीं, उनको कागज़ में पढ़ना है कि उनको वो चलेगा कोई किसी क्या सोशल मीडिया में चलेगा, उसको इलेक्ट्रॉनिक में चलेगा कि नहीं, आप उसको फीडबैक देने को तैयार है कि नहीं, उसको दिलचस्पी है कि नहीं. सबसे बड़ी बात ये है कि किसको पढ़ना है. ये आजकल परेशानी एक ये भी हो गई है कि लिखना तो बहुत लोग चाहते हैं, पढ़ने वाले थोड़े कम हो.
आई थिंक आप जो पूछना चाह रहे हैं वो ये है कि आपका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन आप कैसे स्ट्रेंथन करें, क्योंकि बगैर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के देखिए हम लोग ना जब भी कोई एंड बिकॉज आई मूव्ड फ्रॉम अ लार्ज पब्लिशिंग हाउस, एन इंटरनेशनल पब्लिशिंग हाउस, एंड आई स्टार्टेड माई ओन फर्म. एनीबडी हु स्टार्टिंग देयर ओन वेंचर स्पेशली इन पब्लिशिंग, मैं आपको सजेस्ट करूँगी 2 बातों पे सबसे ज़्यादा पैसा और टाइम इन्वेस्ट करें. एक तो कंटेंट पे, जो भी आप प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं वो अच्छा हो, क्वालिटी अच्छी हो, तो एडिटोरियल पे खूब पैसा लगाएं और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे पैसा लगाएं. अगर आपको मैगज़ीन लॉन्च करने के बाद ये रियलाइज़ हो रहा है कि आप अपनी मैगज़ीन को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट नहीं कर पा रहे, सही जगह नहीं पहुंचा पा रहे, लाइब्रेरीज़ नहीं पहुंचा पा रहे, तो आपको अपने डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क पे काम करना पड़ेगा. देयर आर ट्रेडिशनल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स जो ना सिर्फ बुक्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करते हैं, दे ऑल्सो हेल्प यू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट मैगज़ीन्स. बट आप
प्लेसमेंट कैसे लिए लॉ फर्म के अंदर और कैसे इंटर्नशिप्स अच्छे कर रहे हैं, मतलब एक तरह से मोटिवेशन फॉर द स्टूडेंट्स.
अगर आप स्टूडेंट टारगेट कर रहे हैं तो आपको ये ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा वो खरीद के पैसा दे के नहीं आपका कंटेंट लेगा. तो आपको प्राइमरीली यू हैव टू जनरेट इनकम. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि आप फ्री में डिसेमिनेट करेंगे. एक यूथ की आवाज़ करके पोर्टल है, कई सारे यूथ ओरिएंटेड पोर्टल्स हैं जो एग्जैक्टली ये करते हैं. दे गिव आउट कंटेंट फॉर फ्री फॉर स्टूडेंट्स, but they earn money to sustain that model out of the advertisements that they do. I think आपको जैसा मैम बोल रही थी कि किस ऑडियंस को आप टारगेट करते हुए किस मीडियम के थ्रू उस कंटेंट को देना चाह रहे हैं, वो आपको वापस से बैठ के थोड़ा सोचना पड़ेगा. जस्ट बाय प्रिंटिंग एंड पुशिंग आउट मैगजीन्स विल नॉट वर्क.
Yeah. Also to add on to what Lipika is saying, just wanted to point out that point. What medium? So if you're targeting students, I think the best medium to them is through internet, through digital. Because nowadays, I mean, earlier, of course, we used to even subscribe to these, these subscriptions of having SEC citations, etc. But now everything is digital. So you have to also plan it like that. And of course, after the session, we can also answer further questions that you may have, right?
Anybody else want to talk about authorship or ask something?
We should close it.
Huh?
We should close it.
Cut. Okay. कट हो गया. आप आ जाइएगा, बात नहीं है तो हमको अब हटा रहे हैं स्टेज से. हम बात कर लेंगे आपसे. हाँ बताइए.
It's okay, take the question.
Hello, ma'am. My question is about the readers. Like, if book is published in a hard copy, so I find that very less people are interested to read it. And when it comes on the social media or internet platform, then other thing is that it becomes free of cost, circulated to so many people, and then how the author will get the profit?
How to?
How the author will get the profit, because once anything comes on the internet or social media, it is viral and everyone has the access of it free of cost.
Well, I'm sure Lipika will want to say something about that. From my point of view, what I notice is that when you write a lot on these platforms, people get to know you, and if they enjoy what you're writing, if they're benefiting from what you're writing, they will be more interested in an article you may write or a book you may write. So the social media platforms are absolutely wonderful for reaching an audience.
Are you trying to
was
say
simply
that
not possible.
the piracy part is what you're saying? He's talking about the piracy part. The piracy, that your content is already out for free out there. See, publishers have been from time to time trying to plug in that loophole which allows people to pirate books and put it out for free. But from a marketing perspective, I'll tell you, and this happened with us, with Paulo Coelho when I was working on one of his books. Most of his books come out in the pirated market, right? Most of his books come out. In fact, all of them come out. There was one book which was an 84 release, which was being re-released in India, and the publishers, not just the publisher, we were the publishers, but the distributors were not very confident about it. And the second day of release, that was the quickest that a book came out in the pirated market. And I called my boss and I said, see, it is a success. So it's also a definition of indication of success that your book is being pirated. Very recently, we've had a writer, Abbas, who's written on Babur, a biography on Babur. And that has already come out in the pirated market. So I think when we talk about democratization of content, I think somewhere you have to be prepared that if it is really good, people would want to read it for free. Students have been forever, cyclostyling notes and books and reading of it. But that doesn't make you lesser of a writer. For a writer, number of copies, of course, it does bring in your royalties and revenues, but number of copies should be the last thing, one should be bothered about. There are big, fat, expensive books that Sai writes, J. Sai Deepak writes, and they're expensive books, 800, 900 rupee book, but they sell into lakhs and lakhs of copies. So build your audience, capture your audience by whichever way, and even if it gets pirated, publishers from time to time take their required measures to plug that loophole, but I mean, as a writer, one should not be too bothered about it.
And on a lighter note and a slightly happier note, I can say that the quality of pirated books is so bad. I bought one by mistake some time ago, and I just now keep it as an example of something to be careful about. You can't read it. The paper is bad, the print is bad, it's too small. So don't forget, the pirators are not interested in spending a lot of money. They are just selling those books, and you notice they are wrapped in cellophane. That's why they are wrapped in cellophane, so you can't see inside. So, right, be a success. Don't worry about the pirates. The more pirates, the better. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, the panel. धूप में निकला, घटाओं में नहा कर देखा, ज़िंदगी क्या है किताबों को हटा कर देखा. I think good books and effective authors are the cornerstone of the literature world. So thank you so much for that session. We would ask Ramakrishna sir to present the memento to all the other guests. If you could please have all the mementos on the stage. And please stay back for the group photo as well. Thank you. have a huge round of applause for that panel. Thank you.